listening to episode 21 of the Wheeler's Dog Podcast. Hey, this is Eugene B. Sims, and thanks for joining me for the Wheeler's Dog Podcast, episode 21. And, just right off the bat, I'm going to go ahead and start off with something that kind of teased me a little bit, made me think about how our brains work, stuff like that. Well, I got an odd voicemail from my cousin Dan. You've heard the cousin Dan stories. And he sent me this message of him singing a tune very bizarrely. And, it led to a conversation. Here is the message.
There's something in the garden, what can it be? There's something in the garden I really cannot see. There's something in the garden, hear its funny sound. Gargle, gargle, a frog is what I found.
So after hearing that, I responded back. I was like, you should make a children's album. And by the way, this all occurred on Facebook Messenger. I said, you should make a children's album. That's funny. So Dan asked me, he's like, do you remember that? I'm like, no, not at all. You didn't make that up? He said, no, it was on a children's record that we listened to on my parents' gigantic, nice piece of furniture console stereo. And when it got to the word garden, I would push the record with my fingers so that it sounded like that each time. You and I would laugh our heads off. Well, I wrote him back. I said, I remember that you did that, but no particular song or artist comes to mind. What other memories have been pounded out of my head? And he says, by life? And I said, most likely. So that got me to thinking about, how we see things differently. Like that's his memory. And he just remembers us laughing about that song and what we used to do to manipulate the records. One of the other things we used to do, and it really pissed my mother off. She was in a gospel group, and they traveled the East Coast. They had their own bus. They made albums. They even made 8-track cassette tapes. That's right, 8-track tapes. They were a big deal. They recorded in big studios in Nashville, Tennessee. And again, they traveled by bus to go to different places, to haul all the equipment. Everybody'd ride on the same bus. And it wasn't always like that. It started off with, like a trailer and all that. But they sold record albums. And you can still find some of these albums floating around different places. I wish I had a copy of each one of them, to be honest with you. But anyway, back to the story about Dan and I. We would take their records. The name of the group were the Messengers. That's right. They were a rockin' gospel group, not like dirges or anything like that. They were a rockin' gospel group. They had drums. They had a bass player. They had electric piano. They had laps or a steel guitar. They had a lead guitar. And it was just a quartet doing all the singing. And so the Messengers were their name. And I've ran into several people that have played them on the air on Christian radio stations. So I'm always amazed when I find these people. And I'd like to get them on DVD. Not DVD, but MP3. At least I'd like to get the vinyl copies of the albums, all of them. I wish there was a way that we could get them out there on Spotify and other streaming sites like that, but I'm sure it'd run into all kinds of issues with like who's getting paid, who wrote what song, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, the Messengers were the name. So Dan and I would play them on Speed 45. And he liked to call them the Mousengers. So it was kind of like a, Chipmunks kind of deal for us. And we used to just crack up, especially hearing my mother on 45. And then even back then, that console stereo, it had like whatever the speed was, 16. So they would sing like this. That was always funny, you know. That's how Dan and I got our kicks as little kids. And, you know, he remembered that song, but I could not. That was not a specific thing for me. I find that funny, you know, how we were there in that same moment, but his brain picked up on something a whole lot different than what my brain. So, you know, the last Cousin Dan story I told about the fake blood, the summer of fake blood, I wonder how much different his recollection of all the events were. Because, you know, sometimes people forget, sometimes your memory exaggerates things, and who knows, I may even had some details wrong. And I just kind of wonder, you know, how different his stories would be from his angle. And I just find it funny that I just don't really recall a thing about that particular song. But, you know, again, it comes back down to what our minds remember. Like, I was telling my wife about this, and how my first day of going to junior high school, Northwest Guilford Junior High School, I was terrified. I didn't have any older siblings to kind of help me through the ropes, through the process, anything like that. So I was the trailblazer. I had nothing to fall back on. And, you know, sure, there were some neighborhood kids that I knew that were a little bit older than me, but, you know, I didn't want to, I thought, okay, you know, I'll figure it out. So I get there, first day of school, and I remember they have these things where you looked up by your last name to find out your homeroom number and who your homeroom teacher was. Because you'd get to school, you'd wait for the bell. I think it was an 8:15 bell. And then you head to homeroom so they can make sure that you're there. You know, all the other classes have their thing, but they wanted you there for homeroom. I guess this is where you hear announcements, you get different things out to you. You know, there were people, we're all in alphabetical order. And ours ran through, I want to say it started in the S's and it went all the way through the T's, maybe, our homeroom. Maybe some V's. I can't remember, but we weren't the last line. So, my first day of school, you know, I'm terrified. I don't know what to expect. You know, my anus is just puckered up tighter than Sylvester's mouth with alum. Is that how you pronounce it? Alum. You know, how Tweety would put that in his mouth and he'd pucker up real tight. But, yeah, I was scared. I didn't know what to expect. So I get up there on the wall, find out where my homeroom is, and I had no idea where it was. I mean, we're not talking about in 5th and 6th grade at Summerfield Elementary, they had us going to cubby holes and changing a classroom that was right next door, right? That was it. That was our little bit of training in 5th and 6th grade. But this was a whole new ball game, junior high. That's right. You don't play around with that mess. So I'm a little terrified, and I don't know where the homeroom was. I want to say it started with the number 6. So there were 4 different floors. You had the 1s and 2s. That's like the main classrooms, right kind of next to the commons area and the cafeteria and all that stuff. And then you had the 3 4s. I don't know what they were. And then the 5 6 was kind of like the band room and the oh gosh, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was 4. I can't really remember, but our homeroom was the what is it? The choir room, the chorus room, whatever you want to call it. It wasn't the band room, but it was right there over the locker rooms downstairs, and the gymnasium was on the other side of the wall. I just remember being terrified, and I found out that, oh, well, where is this room at? Luckily, there were some older people that, been through this. They told me, well, that's the chorus room up there. It's not a problem. You just go down those stairs, go straight across, go up those stairs, go straight, hang a left, and there's the chorus room. So it worked out fine. And so I get in there. I am like the third person in the homeroom, that third person in, because I wanted to make sure I had plenty of time to get there, because, I didn't know if you were late, I was thinking they might take you outside and put you up against the wall and shoot you. It's a whole new world, grown-up world. And that's the other thing. Why do they call them middle schools now? I just don't like middle school. Well, what middle school do you go to? It sounds like a halfway house. It sounds like something that it's a chore to get through. It's like, am I going to make it? Am I going to make it through middle school? Oh, God, I'm stuck in middle school. I'll never get out of middle school. With junior high, it sounds like, hey, I'm growing up. I'm getting older. I'm getting more responsibility. It's not quite high school yet, but it's junior high school. I'm moving up in the world. It's not middle school. Gosh, I hate that, middle school. But anyway, I digress. First day in there in the homeroom. Again, I'm like that third person in there. I'm nervous. My anus is still clenched tight. You couldn't even pull my jeans out of that thing. Let me tell you. That's how tight it was. So I'm just sitting there, and I have no idea what to expect. I have no idea who this Mrs. Pitts woman is. And so, turns out she was like a middle-aged woman with braces. Yeah, nothing against her. Nothing against her at all, She had some teeth, wanted to get them straightened out. She got to that point in life, she could do it. Hey, that's totally cool with me. Shoot. And I want to say that she was also a physical education teacher and a coach. But she was all right. She was a little gruff. As we got to know each other, she found out she didn't really care for my type of humor and distractions in the classrooms. Yeah. So, anyway, I'm sitting there, and this guy walks in. I'm not going to say his last name, but I don't think he'd mind anyway, because I thought he was the king of cool when he walked in. His first name was Eric, and he walked in, and no joke, he walked in and he's going, London, Paris, Munich, everybody talk about pop music. Hey, right there, I was thinking, wow, he could be my new best friend. Because I liked that song. That's when it was popular, 1979. Hey, we were birds of a feather. I thought it was just a kitschy, fun song, and apparently he did too, but he came in, walking in London, Paris, Munich, everybody talking about bop music, and he was walking in like he was the keep on trucking man. Like he's laid back, leaning back, the legs going out front, and he just came in, just kind of snapping his finger, had like a little bounce in his step. And, this guy wasn't concerned at all. He had the world on a string. And I'm just sitting there thinking, wow, maybe this is going to be okay. And I just remembered that for years and years. Him just walking in there. And I was terrified of changing classes. I'm going to be late for this. I'm going to be late for that. Because, it wasn't just changing the classroom next door. It was changing from floor to floor. Changing from way up here in the northeast corner all the way down to the southwest corner of the school. And you had to be there in, I don't know, what seemed like no time at all, 5 or 6 minutes. It seemed impossible. But yeah, Eric just came in walking in, and that just, for some reason, that always stuck in my mind. It just always has. And so when we got to our 10-year high school reunion at Northwest Guilford, because he and I were in the same homerooms like all the way through. We weren't friends. We never really got to be friends. We were merely acquaintances. You know what I mean? It's like there wasn't really a whole lot of things in common that made you friends. I was one of these guys in high school that just kind of drifted between the classes, if you will. You know, you have I'm not talking about classrooms. I'm talking about like the classes of people. You know, we had the hoods. That's what we called them, the hoods. They were the people that hung out in the smoking section, listening or wearing Leonard Skinner t-shirts that looked like Jack Daniels labels. You know, the hard rockers, you know, the serious hard rockers, the ass kickers, the people that really like driving fast cars or being in fast cars or looking like they're in fast cars, you know, smoking cigarettes, watching Captain Kangaroo, that sort of deal. And, you know, it was really, oh, I'm getting a phone call. Let me catch this. Well, okay, I wasn't quick enough to catch it because I also needed to put it on Wi-Fi calling because our signal sucks out here. But I forgot what the heck I was talking about. Yeah, change of classes, that sort of thing. Eric. Yes. So we get to the 10-year high school reunion, Northwest Guilford, and this would be 1995. Kind of a rough period for me because I just kind of broke up with a girlfriend. You know, it wasn't really cool. I was hoping to have her on my arm to go with me and meet some of the old folks that I used to hang out with, spent 6 years of my life with going to school. Some of them, sometimes more, and I've got some friends like Jonathan. We've been friends, Baker, Sullivan, Scott. We've been friends ever since, like 7th grade. Some of them before, Scott even before. I think Scott and I went to Summerfield Elementary. Met some lifelong friends there. And so, I'm going stag to my 10-year reunion. And, it's kind of sad. There's a lot of people, buddied up, married up. And, I get that. That's totally cool. But that wasn't the case for me. And so I went anyway. I remember seeing Eric there. And so I went up to Eric and I told him my memory of him that first day in school. And it left such a mark on me that I had to bring it up to him to see if he even remembered it. He had no clue. He had no clue what I was talking about. Even that song, he didn't even really remember the song. I'm like, the song by M, pop music, with a Z instead of an S. And I think it ends with a K. And I'm just, no clue. He had no idea the impression he made on me that day and how it affected me and how I remembered it. So I was, he had no clue. And it was just kind of funny. So it also made me wonder, like, how many other memories have I forgotten? How many have I forgotten? And, Dan and I were tight growing up. I mean, he had 2 other cousins that lived real close, in the same county, Glenn and Wade. And I get along with Glenn and Wade. Love those guys. And when the 4 of us got together, oh gosh, there's no telling what kind of mayhem was going to break out. Let me tell you. Because Wade was the jokester. He was the laughing jokester, and he has a laugh that once you hear it, you always remember it. And you might hear it in a crowd of people, unaware that he's there, but as soon as you hear that laugh, Wade is around. And Glenn, just kind of a laid-back kind of dude, just kind of, how do you put it, dry kind of humor, just kind of in there. Dan was more of the, sometimes he could have some silly humor. Me, I was incredibly dry. And I've always been incredibly dry. Dan just kind of, hilarious at times. And just, into physical comedy as well. And together we could make all kinds of things funny. We were doing MST3K long before anybody else ever did it. Yeah, sitting around in the living room. And one of the other things I remember that we like to do is we'd be up late at night watching Johnny Carson, stuff like that. And we would take crayons and make like glasses and mustaches on the screen. And even for like Walter Cronkite, we'd put that on the screen, draw glasses and put a mustache and just kind of have fun with it and just see where it ends up on the faces of the people on the TV screen. But, just kind of think about that. What are the things have I missed? Have I forgotten about? Especially that Dan remembers, and what are his perspectives of the stories that I'm telling you about him? It'd be interesting. So, Dan, if you're listening, by all means, call in on the Wheeler's Dog Speak line, 422-6006. That's area code 336-422-6006.
The oldest, longest, continuously running pop culture podcast in North Carolina, The Less Desirables, brings you the movers and shakers that make Winston-Salem unique. Available everywhere you find podcasts and at tldpodnetwork.com.
And no, I have not gotten to my AC/DC scientific research. Now, if you go to my award-winning blog, wheelersdog.com, you'll find that I'm putting my findings there, and with every album, I'm keeping track of how Phil Rudd compares to the other drummers in AC/DC, like Tony Corrente, Peter Clack, I think that's his name, and the unknown drummer. But he is picking up steam. I will tell you that, but the next album that I need to tell you about is For Those About to Rock, and to be honest with you, I just don't care for that album. Yeah, it's one of my least favorite AC/DC albums. That one and probably Blow Up Your Video. Not a big fan of that one. And again, I am not doing the live albums because, it's just a different animal. Just doing the studio recordings. And, I just dread doing For Those About to Rock. I just don't care for that album. I think it's one of the worst. You've got such a great album, Back in Black, and the sophomore effort with Brian Johnson on lead vocals just doesn't do it for me. Yeah, can't get into it. Well, anyway, folks, I'm going to wrap it up. It's a little early on this one, but hey, I'm running out of things to talk about. Oh, but I am going to open up the Patreon again. As soon as everything starts getting a little bit better as we go through this crisis. So I'm thinking about mid-May, and that way, Tuesdays will be for everybody. Fridays will be Patreon only. So keep that in mind. Patreon.com/WheelersDog to unlock all the audio. All you got to do is donate $4 a month to my calls. Help me out with the expenses and stuff because, I really do need to get a hold of Adobe Audition. This Audacity, as free as it is, it's a pain in my butt. Yeah, it's not easy to use. So, don't make me beg. But anyway, I'm getting on out of here. Got some things I got to do today. Let's see, get some taxes together. Finally, I know we've got a little bit of time, but Jamie and I just kind of been dragging our feet getting the taxes done. And this morning I found out, hey, I can find our vehicle taxes that we paid online. So, yeah, I had to get copies of that. And we just got a printer that works. We have a printer and a scanner, but the damn thing won't work. And it keeps getting hung up. Things get hung up in the queue. You know what I mean? And so in order to get it working again, we need to get Jonathan looking at it. Because Jonathan knows his stuff. And me, I get frustrated with it. And when I get frustrated with things, it's not a good thing. Because I will pick it up, rip it out of the wall, throw it through the backyard. When things don't work, for me, can't do it. That's why it's probably a good idea that I'm not mechanical. Especially with cars. Because it just, hey, it always seems to frustrate everyone I know when a car is not. You do everything you're supposed to do, and then it won't work right. So I don't need that kind of aggravation in life. But anyway, I got to take some stuff over to our accountant, get that taken care of. And that was the last things that we needed to do, was get the vehicle taxes, the property taxes that we paid on them last year. And hey, it took me a while to figure out how to find them, but I finally found them. and I'm happy about that. So taking our tax guy a little bit later, and also I'm working on getting the swimming pool opened. That's right. I know it's uncertain times, and you know, I'm worried about I'm not working, you know, so I'm worried about, you know, the electricity bill is going to go through the roof once the heat starts up and the air conditioning needs to run, and the pool pump's got to run 24/7. Then on top of that, the price of the chemicals, once you got to get the pool, you know, massaged into shape, you got to maintain that shape. I mean, you got to be vigilant on it. It's like everybody talks about being so expensive and time consuming. It's really not if you just get in it and keep with it. It's really not that big a deal. But the biggest part is the cost in electricity. You know, I'm not too sure about these times, and I've pleaded my case, but my wife, she's got other ideas. And so she's like, I don't want to be stuck at home with stay-at-home orders while there's a pool there that I can't get in. If I can't leave the house on a Saturday, well, by God, I'm going to be in that pool all day. So I can't argue with that. So anyway, guys, thanks for checking it out. And again, leave any questions, comments, whatever you want to leave there at the Wheeler's Dog Speak line. Again, 336-422-6006. Take care of yourselves. I'll talk at you later. Bye. London, Paris, Munich, everybody talk about pop music.